If you live in Scotland, you'll know the word Kirk stands for church, but not today, because today is a name for a brand new gravel bike from Shanon Cycles. And my goodness, what a lovely looking bike it is. I love the two-tone paint job over the steel frame, matching the RockShox Rudy suspension fork at the front. So loads to talk about. We'll go through the tech details, we'll go for a ride and see how it performs. So let's dive in. Now, many of you will be familiar with Shanon Cycles. They've been a bit of an adventure focused brand for many years, and they've previously had the Stussy, which was an all-road sort of light gravel bike. But as gravel has progressed and evolved, and the riding people are doing them and getting more extreme, and tyre clearance are generally getting wider, they felt the need to make a new model, purpose-built for the demands of gravel riding, and the Kirk is a result. So tyre clearance is massively up over a Stussy. You can fit up to a 50mm tyre on 700cc wheels on this bike. They come spec with 45s as standard, so ignore the fact the test bike has 40s. That's due to supply issues making the bike available for testing. At its heart is a beautiful Columbus steel frame, which is handmade in Scotland. So if you care about where your frame is made, that is certainly a big draw. There are two models in the new Kirk range. There's this one with a RockShox Rudy suspension fork and reverb seat post, with a SRAM Explore 1x group set and Hope wheels and hubs. But there's also a cheaper model with a Redshift stem and Redshift suspension seat post and a carbon fibre fork, using the same group set and the same wheels and the same frame. This model here costs £5,500 and the Redshift model is £4,500. So two models depending on whether you like a suspension fork or you want a rigid carbon fork. The geometry has been worked on extensively as well. So a nice low bottom bracket, long wheelbase, fairly slack head angle as well, to give you that stability you want on loose terrain and at high speed, and when you're bike packing with extra weight on a bike as well, but also retaining that nimbleness and agility you want from a bike like this. And the frame has some lovely details on it as well. I love the head badge for a start. We have an external threaded bottom bracket, external cable routing, which I'm fine with. We've got extra mounts for bottles and racks and mud guards, all that sort of stuff you want on an adventure gravel focused bike. We've got an external seat post, and as you can see, you can fit a dropper seat post on this bike. On the scales, this size large without pedals weighs 11.2 kilograms. But what's that weight like out on the trail? Well, let's go for a spin and find out. This bike is fast, it's quick, much faster than I was expecting. The weight isn't amazing, but you don't buy a steel bike if you're concerned about weight. You buy a carbon fibre race bike. But despite that weight, and despite being a bit slow off the mark and maybe a bit slower out of corners, once you're up to speed, it absolutely trucks along really well. And because of the suspension fork and that supple frame, it holds its speed over rough trails better and longer than some stiff carbon gravel bikes can do. And I really like the RockShox Rudy suspension fork, which I also reviewed last year. And now I know a lot of people don't like the idea of gravel suspension forks, think it's a waste of time and you'd be better off buying a mountain bike, but I disagree. For me, it still keeps the simplicity and that feeling of being underbiked for riding off-road, but gives you more comfort when you're bouncing along a grassy track or corrugated gravel track, and then give you more capability when you ride the cheeky mountain bike trails that I like to try and find on my gravel bike. So it opens up your riding a lot more to riding very technical trails that might be off limits on a conventional gravel bike, while giving you more comfort. The combination of a compliant steel frame, fat tyres at low pressures, and that 40mm suspension fork means it just floats over the roughest trails, just floats along these rough tracks, soaking up rocks and roots and gravel and grassy bumpy tracks, to rooty tooty, steep as you like, technical tracks where you're fully engaged with a dropper seat post, holding on for dear life. Such a smooth operator. The two bikes in the range share the same frame, a choice of carbon fork or the RockShox suspension fork we have here, but then the same SRAM Explore 1x gearing with a 1044 cassette and a choice of chainring sizes starting from 40 and going up. But I would highly recommend going for the smaller 40 tooth chainring, because that in combination with a 44 on the back gives you a fairly reasonable chance of getting up steep climbs that you usually find when you're riding off-road, or if you're riding with bike packing bags, where the extra weight definitely puts an emphasis on lower gears. I really like the SRAM Explore gearing. Rode it last year on a Saddleback Warbird across Scotland. See my video link down below. 1044 coupled to a 40-tooth chainring gives you plenty of range, high and low, and definitely helps you winch up the steeper climbs you find when you're riding off-road and when you've got some luggage on the bike as well. I also really like electronic shifting for riding off-road. Pressing a button when you're bouncing across a bumpy trail is easier than trying to push a mechanical gear lever. And I like the way you can customise the gearing. And on this bike, because it's one by, press both buttons together and you activate the reverb dropper seat post. But if you're less concerned about pushing your limits on a technical trail and more about comfort for long gravel rides, then the lower model with the redshift suspension and seat post might be a better option. It works really well at ironing out everything from rough trails to sort of washboardy, gravel, grassy trails that we find here in the UK. The gravel bike market is moving at a rapid rate. Bikes are evolving so quickly. As riding demands increase, people buying these bikes for adventures, bike packing, but also versatility for commuting, road touring and everything else. And this bike, with the wide tyres, the geometry and all the other features on it, perfectly meets the demands of the modern gravel bike rider. Such a well thought out package, from the geometry, the specification and the way it looks. I love the two-tone paint job as well. Yeah, I think Shanon has done a really good job with this new Kirk. It's definitely not an out and out gravel race bike. If you want to go racing and gravel, then check out my review of the Villiers Rave, the 3T Explorer, all linked down below. Those are better kind of lightweight gravel bikes that are good on the road and very fast on smooth gravel. This is more your kind of adventure seeking, getting lost in the wilderness sort of bike. Yes, it can be ridden fast, it's no slouch, but it's definitely got an emphasis, an eye on those big adventures. Add some bags, plot a route, off you go. Get yourself lost in the woods like I am now. I'm actually not sure where I'm going, to be honest. I've not been down here before. But that's all part of the fun of gravel riding. Just follow your nose. See where the trail goes. No plan, but your destination is always the same. Always leave you with a big smile. So the new Shanon Kirk is a fantastic gravel bike that really excels on-road but also off-road, especially on very technical and rough trails thanks to a RockShot rear suspension fork. There are quite a few interesting options in the gravel bike market right now, especially if you have a soft spot for steel frames, which I do. As many of you know, I own a steel frame in a Fairlight Sacan, and that's a good comparison for the bike, but I think they're both on a very high level. And which one you choose comes down to personal preference. But the fact this is made in Scotland is definitely a USP over Fairlight and other brands where the manufacturing is outsourced. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but if you're not worried about it and you're more focused on performance, then this and a Fairlight on a very high level, and really splitting the two is really, really tricky. I could equally ride and own either of these bikes, they are that good. Anyway, time to hand over to you, so let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. So a thumbs up or thumbs down. Would it be on shortlist, or what else are you looking at in this gravel bike market right now? If you want to see some more gravel bike reviews, then check out the playlist up here. And don't forget to subscribe by hitting this button down here. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.